everyone. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Sonia's Into Another World News. So, before I get started, I want to say thank you to all the new people that subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you giving me that support. And I also want to say I am outside on my patio, so if you hear noises in the background, it's cars driving by or motorcycles driving by. Hopefully it won't be too much noise because it is after 2 o'clock in the morning here where I'm at in Orlando. Yeah, but just in case you wonder what that noise is, I'm outside. So, I wasn't going to really, this isn't planned out. This was just spontaneous, last minute thing. Because there's been so much in the news lately about David Grush, Marco Rubio, Senator Gillibrand, Representative Tim Burchett. And I was going to wait to the hearings at this, supposedly that are supposed to happen at the end of this month to see how everything goes. But I said I would just talk a little bit about this. And when I say in the news lately, it's been pretty much News Nation that's only been talking about David Grush and Marco Rubio and the hearings that are coming out, and also the Hill, which is on the rising. They've been covering this too. They've been doing a phenomenal job of covering this UAP phenomenon and all the news that's been in the all the talk that's been in the news about it lately. They've been really staying up on this, and I really commend them for really keeping this in the forefront and taking it seriously and talking about it seriously and not turning it to a laughing, joking matter. But what's weird is that other mainstream news other mainstream news companies haven't been talking about this. You haven't had the New York Times haven't touched it. The Washington Post haven't touched it. What else is out there? CNN haven't touched it. I don't think Fox News has touched it either, which is oddly strange. I mean, because I know in the past, though, before the 2017 article came out by the New York Times, written by the piece by Leslie Kean and Arthur, what's his name? Ralph Blumenthal did the whole article or piece about the Pentagon UFO Black Budget program that they were studying UFOs. That came out in 2017. But before that, you never had mainstream news companies, media taking the UAP phenomenon seriously. They always laughed at it. They always scoffed it. They always took it as a joking matter. But when that piece came out in 2017, everybody was picking it up. You had Fox News, you had CNN, you had Washington Post. I mean, everybody was picking up. News Nation, The Hill, they were all talking about it. Then when those 3 videos came out from the Navy, they were all covering it. And then with Elizondo and everything, they were all over top. They were all over it. I mean, everybody was talking about it. But then this year, when David Grush came out, who has an impeccable background, his credentials are phenomenal. I mean, as far as we know, he's been vetted very well, and no one's been able to dig up any dirt on him. So he's the real deal. So it's what is weird is that none of these other mainstream news companies have touched it. They don't seem to want to cover it. The only people that have been really covering it, the only I mean, I guess they're not like up there with the New York Times or CNN, all of them, but it's News Nation and The Hill. And they have been doing an outstanding job on covering this topic with David Grush and the hearings that are supposed to be coming out at the end of this month, and Marco Rubio. And you would think, since Senator Marco Rubio has come out and started addressing this UAP cover-up and this phenomenon that's going on and trying to get to the bottom of what the DOD knows and the Pentagon knows and these secret special access programs, you would think him talking about whistleblowers coming out, that mainstream news companies such as Fox, CNN, ABC News, New York Times, Washington Post will be all over this. But for some reason, they have been strangely quiet on this phenomenon. They haven't said anything about Senator Marco Rubio coming out, Tim Burchett, Representative Tim Burchett coming out, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, I think I'm saying her last name correctly, coming out and talking about having hearings on this. And you have to wonder why that is. I mean, we've known in the past that the CIA has always had a hand in having operatives in mainstream news companies, such as the New York Times. They've always been in there to influence news and have it go a certain way. So you have to wonder, is that what's happening now? Has some part of, like, the DOD, the Pentagon, the CIA is in the background manipulating stuff, whereas these mainstream news companies aren't talking about it, telling them to stay quiet. I don't know what it is, but something is keeping these mainstream news companies from talking about it. But like I said, News Nation and The Hill, they have been doing an amazing job talking about this subject and keeping up on it, and I really commend them. My hat's off to them, because they're taking it seriously. They're not turning it into like a joking, laughing matter like most mainstream news companies have done in the past. But yeah, so I guess I'm also curious back to these hearings that I were talking about. They're supposed to happen at the end of this month. So I'm just wondering. It's my cat or dog making a noise. I don't know. So these hearings that are supposed to happen at the end of July, if they happen at the end of July, I'm curious to see where they're gonna go to. What I know, Representative Tim Burchett is going to be heading it up, and I think along with Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and I want to say Marco Rubio, but I'm not sure. I know he's been talking about it a lot on the news and stuff, so we'll see. But I'm all for backing Tim Burchett. He has been awesome in the news talking about this stuff and getting to the bottom of it and having transparency. So I may not agree with him on all his politics, but I agree with him on this transparency on the UAP phenomenon that's going on and how the DOD and Pentagon's been covering up stuff. I'm going to read you guys an article that I found out today from Richard Dolan, because I follow Richard Dolan on his site. And I've also heard Tim Burchett talking about this in the news too. So let me get to this article. Congressman has a grim take after access to UFO footage. We can't handle it. And this is actually on Fox News, which I'm surprised. Representative Tim Burchett, who sits on the House Oversight Committee involved in UFO hearings, said he was shown classified footage that hasn't been released to the public. Oh, I want to see that footage so bad. A Tennessee lawmaker issued a dire warning after claiming to have seen classified UFO footage that hasn't been released to the public. Representative Tim Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, speculated extraterrestrial life form could have technology that humanity can't handle during an appearance on the Event Horizon podcast. If they're out there, they're out there. And if they have this kind of technology, then they could turn us into a charcoal briquette, Burchett said. And if they can travel light years or at the speed that we have seen in physics as we know it, fly underwater, don't show a heat trail, things like that, then we are vastly out of our league, which is so true. Burchett is a sitting member on the House of the Oversight Committee, which has held hearings about potential threats of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, a government-derived term for UFOs. We can't handle it, Burchett said during his podcast appearance about potential alien tech. We couldn't fight them off if we wanted to. That's why I don't think they're a threat to us, or they would have already been. Let's see. Then it goes on. His startling comments came after whistleblower David Grush, a decorated Air Force veteran who is considered by many to be credible, came forward with claims the government. Wait, is this? Oh, well, yeah, I think this is part of the article, I guess. Who was considered by many to be credible, came forward with the claims the government has been running a secret UFO retrieval program. And I always thought the retrieval program had started back in the 40s, originally with the Roswell crash. But according to David Grush, the first UFO was recovered. I think he said in 1933. One had crashed in Italy. The Vatican knew about it. I think the Italian government had it. I think this when Mussolini was in power. Anyway, they end up turning it over to the United States. So the cover-up goes back way far longer than starting in the 40s. This would be like almost close to 90 years, maybe over 80 years. Let's see, and then it goes on. The House Oversight Committee is preparing a hearing to discuss Bush's unverified claims. Burchett and fellow Republicans, Representative Anna Paulina Luna Florida, will lead the committee's investigation. Let's see. And then Susan Goh, a spokesperson for the Department of Defense, told Fox News Digital in a previous email, June 6, there is no verifiable information to substantiate these claims. Stop right there. If there is no verifiable information to substantiate these claims, then these whistleblowers technically don't have anything to be concerned about. They can come out and disclose whatever they want. I know they were afraid because of going to jail and receiving threats and national security, but technically Susan Goh, or Goff, however you say her name, of the Department, the spokesperson of the Department of Defense, saying there is no verifiable information. So technically, they can't really prosecute these whistleblowers or David Grush, since they're saying there is no verifiable information. They're basically saying that none of this exists. There is no UFO crash retrieval program. There is no alien bodies. None of it. So technically, if they came out and just let everything hit the fan and fly out, what are they going to prosecute them for? Because they said nothing exists. Either way, that's my thinking. I don't know. Let me know what you think if you agree with me. But yeah, so there was so yeah, that's what Republican Tim Burchett was talking about these ETs being here, being really advanced, which is true. I mean, if you've done your research, if you study this phenomenon, you've watched documentaries, if you studied the Roswell crash, if you go back to the 1941 Cape Girardeau crash, if you listen to some of these abductee stories, there is really nothing we can do. They abduct people, they take them, they do their medical experiments, they take eggs, they take sperm, they attempt to wipe their memories, which sometimes succeeds, which sometimes doesn't. They have the ability to travel vast distances in light years, or some of them are coming from interdimensional, maybe they're coming through wormholes, but yeah, they are significantly way more advanced than us. But does that mean that we shouldn't know that they exist? No. Does that mean that the military, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon should keep lying to us? No, because we know they're taking people, at least the people in the UFO, UAP community who are here listening to this and do their research, know people are being taken, whether they tell us the truth or not. They're being taken, so. But that doesn't mean that we should still be kept in the dark, no matter how advanced there is. Of course, it's going to frighten people. And it's going to scare people, but I think we still should be told the truth. Because, I mean, the secret keepers who are keeping the secret just making us to look like fools, especially people who've been abducted and who've been trying to tell their stories, and people who've been encountering things. Like in children, like the landings that happened in the area school encounter, or the West Hall encounter that happened in Australia in 1966, when these kids saw these objects land. Well, the West Hall encounter that happened in Australia in 1966, the kids, the high school kids, I think they were middle school, high school, saw these objects land. No one came at them, but they saw these things land in the field behind their school. But with the area school encounter that happened in Africa and Zimbabwe, which I think were I want to say the late 80s and the 90s. I got to look at my dates. This craft land, these beings come out and spoke to a couple of these kids telepathically. So, and then you turn around and then have the military or the government tell put out there these kids are making this up, that it's not real and stuff. It's stuff like that. That's why we should be telling the truth, because anyway. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Let me see what goes on. I think that was the end of this article. Let's see. There was another article that came out today. Well, I won't say yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. And it was with Senator Chuck Schumer. So it says Senator Chuck Schumer introduces a new bill to declassify UFO-related government records. I'm like, good luck with that. So I think he was giving the Pentagon or Department of Defense like 100 days or 300 days. I have to go back and look at it. I can't remember. And I'm thinking to myself, that's going to be 100 days, 300 days for them to completely get rid of evidence or cover up stuff, because that's what's going to happen. They are going to try to get rid of as much evidence as possible to keep Congress from knowing about everything or what they have in their possession as it relates to recovered UFOs or bodies and stuff like that. So, I don't know. We'll see where that goes. But yeah, it's what I wanted to address a little bit about the hearings, the lack of news coverage in mainstream news media, Tim Burchett, this bill that's supposed to come out. I was trying to find. Okay, here it is. Okay, UFO amendment tucked in Pentagon spending bill enjoys rare bipartisan support long past time. Let's see. The U.S. could enter a new age of UFO transparency with the passage of several amendments tucked into the Other Matters section of the voluminous 2023 Defense Bill. The National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, approved by the House on Friday in a 219 to 210 vote, includes the UAP Disclosure Act, which results the release of known sightings of UAPs or unidentified anomalous phenomenon. The U.S. government preferred term for unidentified flying objects. It's still UFOs. UAPs is still UFOs. It's the exact same thing. The bill requires the Department of Defense to declassify any documents or records about publicly known UFOs and sites that won't compromise national security. And right there, national security. That's going to be their excuse for not disclosing anything. Their excuse is going to be national security. They're going to be their go-to thing. It also requires the creation of a secure channel for UFO reporting that includes protection of government employees' jobs and from retribution, searches for all non-disclosure agreements related to UFOs, extraterrestrial life, and updates to Congress by September 3rd, 2023, and fiscal year until 2026. So technically they have up until September 30th in 2023. And like I say, good luck with that, because you're just giving them time to get rid of evidence. I mean, no doubt that whoever has been maintaining this covering up since, I guess, from the 1930s and so on, has no doubt thought about laying out a plan. If something seems like it's going to come out, if it's getting too close to public, or Congress is starting to stick their nose and snoop around, they have to have like a backup plan to keep Congress from finding these special access programs, from finding this alien tech, for finding the bodies or whatever. I mean, I would say good luck, Senator. Representative Tim Burchett and Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Gillibrand and all you wonderful people in Congress trying to get to the truth, because you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to get any real good information, honest information from the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, or whoever, the secret government within our government that's been maintaining this cover up. Let's see, what else does it go on to say in this? The Bipartisan UAP Disclosure Act includes a search for records about UFOs going back to January 1st, 1945. The bill states, let's see, let me click on where it says the bill states to see what it says. It looks like it does not want to go to it. I might just leave a link in the description below for you guys to go find this, because it looks, you have to search through a whole bunch of other parts of this bill, and it's like a lot in here that has nothing to do with UAPs. Anyway, I'll put a link in the description below. Let's see. So it goes on to say, specifically, records of any program or activity was protected by restricted access that has not been explicitly and clearly reported to Congress in an effort to obfuscate, manipulate public opinion, or hide other word. That word was a mouthful. Hide or otherwise provide incorrect, unclassified, or classified information about UFOs. Congressman has then it goes on to talk about Tim Burchett again and what he was talking about on the podcast. Let's see. So yeah. So then it goes on down here. The review board will have 72 hours to either release the records or oppose disclosure. The president can either agree or overturn the board's decision. Many of the UAP amendments were proposed in the Senate by Senators Schumer and Mike Rounds, RSD, and in the House by Representative Peter DeFazio, Dior, and Tim Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, who has been outspoken on the UFO topic and pushing for more transparency. So from what I understand, Senator Chuck Schumer is the highest of the high in Congress or whatever. So we'll still see where this bill goes, if it goes anywhere at all. Like I said, there is a secret government within our government who is maintaining this cover-up, and they answer to no one. They operate with impunity. They operate outside the law. No doubt they planned for this. So I'm not holding my breath that anything amazing or wonderful or is going to happen at the end of this month when those hearings happen, or by September when they're giving the Department of Defense or Pentagon a timetable to turn over information, share what they know. And even if they do turn over information, share what they know, I really doubt that they're going to share whatever they find with us, with the public. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. That's all we can do is wait and see. I guess that's all I got for now until those hearings at the end of this month. So yeah. Let me see if there's anything else. Well, I guess I am curious to see what whistleblowers are going to have too coming out to speak. And you know what I was thinking about whistleblowers? How this brings me back to Bob Lazar. I mean, technically he was the ultimate badass whistleblowers. I know there are people who still doubt his credibility because of his schooling and all that kind of stuff, who still doesn't believe he worked at S4, but I believe the guy. I have read his I've seen him speak at conferences. I've followed his story. I've listened to George Knapp talk about him. I've heard other people who talked about him. I mean, George Knapp proved that he worked at Los Alamos when they tried to say when people tried to say he didn't work at Los Alamos. And they proved that he did work there. There was people who knew him. He took George Knapp there when they walked the facility, so he did work there. And then he also proved, that he showed them showed George Knapp like a paycheck stub when he worked at S4, which is located within an Area 51, and it shows that his paychecks came from the Navy, which is weird because when these crashes happen with like Cape Girardeau, when the 1947 Roswell crash and the 1948, I think it was the Aztec crash, it seemed like the Air Force was always on the ones always first to these crashes. They always were the ones first at the site, recovering these objects that had crashed with the bodies and stuff. So somewhere along the way, the Navy got involved because Bob Lazar said his paychecks were coming from the Navy. So there's some part of the Navy that has been maintaining this cover up too, along with the Air Force. Now maybe they're doing their own thing. Like I said, it's so compartmentalized. One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing, and they're not sharing information. But yeah, I think Bob Lazar is legit. I believe he's legit. I think he worked at S4 from the time frame he said from 88, 89, off and on. I think he saw the 9 crafts there that he said he did. I think he worked on the sports model like he said he did. He knew when they were testing this thing, which was on Wednesday night in Las Vegas, because he said they tested on Wednesday night because there was less traffic on the highway for people to spot this thing. He took his friends and stuff and wife out there, and they saw the thing being tested, and that's when they got caught by security and stuff like that. So yeah, so the dude is legit. Say what you want, but he's legit. He's the ultimate whistleblower. But yeah, so anyway, that's it. That's all I got. I'm gonna call it night. So I'm gonna say buenos noches, bon nuit, and good night. Bye for now.